Hello everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I hope you're as excited as I am to be viewing this session, which is presented by Kellyn Vaughan and is going to be on Oracle DB12c Pluggable Databases. Thank you so much for logging in early. I hope you've had a chance to check out our upcoming webinars. As you can see on the screen there, the next two sessions that we're running are both in July, so we've got one next week, which is presented by Dominic Delmolino, who's an Oracle ACE, a member of the Oak Table, and he's going to be talking about database version control. It's going to be a very interesting session, and he'll be looking at distributed environments and the pros and cons between centralized and personal development environments. So if you're working in this way or you're looking to work in this way, I would definitely recommend checking that one out. At the end of the month, Karen Millsap's going to present a session on performance. So there's got loads of people registered, so it's a very popular session already. As you can imagine, it will be with a session by Karen Millsap on performance. You can find out about these webinars and access, more importantly, you can register for these webinars and access past webinars, as always, at redgate.com/oracle-webinars. I do apologise. Just got a few people have said that they'd like me to speak a little bit louder. So I hope you can all hear me now. Okay, so a few things before we start. Everybody will be on mute for the duration of the event. If at any time you can't hear us, please do first check your own audio settings. Make sure your speakers are turned up and make sure your speakers are on. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the session. As always, please do type questions in advance of this session, particularly as Kellyn goes over bits that you'd like a little bit more explanation on. But we won't actually answer any questions until the end of the session. This session is being recorded, and a recording of the full webinar will be put up online. Of course, I will send you an email to let you know where you can access that from. So as I mentioned before, today's session is called Plugging in Oracle DB12c Pluggable Databases. The main presenter for today is Kellyn Vaughan. Please do follow Kellyn at DBA Kevlar if you're on Twitter. Those of you who've come to some of Kellyn's sessions before can know what to expect. It's going to be a fantastic session. Of course, Kellyn being an Oracle ACE director and a director for the Rocky Mountain Oracle User Group's Training Days Conference. She's also a senior technical consultant at NKETIC. Kellyn will tell you a little bit more about herself when I hand over to her. As always, I'm James Mercer. I'm the creator and editor of allthingsoracle.com, and I work at Redgate Software. Again, please do follow me at All Things Oracle, particularly if you want to keep up to date with these kind of sessions and the work that I'm doing with allthingsoracle.com. As always, this webinar is brought to you by Redgate Software and the deployment suite for Oracle. Hopefully, those of you that have come to these sessions regularly have had a chance to check out what Redgate does, and of course, all of you've come in via the Redgate website to register for this session, so I hope you had a chance to have a look about what we do. If you haven't, we do produce tooling for Oracle database developers and DBAs. We focus on the areas of deployment, so we've got 3 tools here, which you can find out a little bit more about at redgate.com/Oracle. 3 tools. So one of them, Schema Compare for Oracle. It does what it says. We like to keep things simple. Actually, our slogan at Redgate is ingeniously simple, and that's not just in the fact that we produce tools that enable complex tasks to be accomplished in a simple fashion, but we do like to keep everything simple in what we do. So Schema Compare for Oracle enables you to compare and deploy schema structure. Data Compare for Oracle enables you to compare and deploy schema data, so table data. And we have a new tool called Source Control for Oracle, which removes manual processes associated with source control in schema objects, a schema structure. It's not a separate source control system, but rather it enables you to source control your database code using your existing source control system. And I will be doing a demonstration of source control for Oracle after the main presentation, so please do hang around for that. And we've got a nice screenshot here of source control for Oracle. I think one of the things that really sets Redgate apart, though, is our commitment to community resources and community education. So the work that I'm doing with this webinar program and with allthingsoracle.com is to provide resources for you to help you in all of the work that you're doing. I've got a screenshot of allthingsoracle.com up here. You can see that when I took this screenshot, we had the top story, or the news story rather, was a part 1 of a Oracle DB12c new features series. There's 3 parts on there. I'm going to be publishing part 4 very shortly. But there's loads of resources on there, so please do check out the site. Obviously, we've got the free webinars as well that we're doing, and we also offer a number of ebooks. Actually, we do have a current ebook offer, which is a Tortoise SVN subversion cookbook. But you can find out more information about all this kind of stuff at redgate.com/oracle-education. Okay, so I think I've spoken enough. I know you're all dying for Kellen to get online and to actually kick off the main presentation. So I'm going to hand over to Kellen now. Please do bear with us whilst I do the handover. Hopefully it does go smoothly.
Hopefully everyone can see my screen there.
Yeah, everything looks good, Kellen. I shall leave it with you now.
Thank you. Thank you, James, and good morning, everyone. It's morning for me. I'm in the Rocky Mountains, so it's only a little bit after 9 here. Like I said there, I'm in Westminster, Colorado, which is just northwest of Denver, so I'm near Boulder, near all the mountains, and it's gorgeous here. I am an Oracle ACE Director, and I'm also a Senior Technical Consultant with Incatech. Most people know them. You try to figure out what that name means. It's just necktie. They've just mixed all the letters up because nobody wants to wear one there. So if you've ever wondered out where that name came from, now you know. I'm also the Training Days Director for RMUG, which is the Rocky Mountain Oracle User Group, and I presented a number of conferences. My next one coming up, of course, is Oracle Open World. I'll have a couple sessions there. I also sorry, this came up this last month, was the database track lead for Kscope, another conference I enjoy. And I've been the lead author and co-author on a couple books now. The latest one just came out this last month, the Expert Enterprise 12c book. So if you're an enterprise manager and want to know more about it, that's definitely a book to check out from A-Press. My current hobby right now is women in technology. I've kind of engrossed myself in that area a lot, and the challenges for women in the technical arena, as well as the men who are trying to support them because they have their own challenges, that's for sure. And then OWL, which is a new thing for RMUG. It's called Oracle Without Limits. And it's something that we're taking on to bring in more areas of technology in our actual database track, and our actual tracks, I should say, at the Rocky Mountain Oracle User Group Training Days. That'll be in February in 2014. So, Oracle DB12c. I know this has gotten a lot of hype. At Kscope last month, it came out right in the middle of the conference. I was on a panel with Stephen Furstein and Carrie Millsap, and we expected all the questions to be geared towards them. on development lifecycle and development, and unfortunately it was all DB12c questions. We actually had let everybody know, oh yeah, it's out there available on e-delivery, and the questions started coming through. So this is a big deal. Released, kind of officially or unofficially, I don't know how you want to say it on June 25th. There's loads of new features, but of course the pluggable database is a big deal. This was involved in a beta program testing. A lot of people were involved in this. I know Ankatech was part of it. I was offered to go for ODTUG. Unfortunately, I could not. My buddy Bobby Curtis ended up going and had a great time. Excuse me, had a frog in my throat. And went through everything that was part of that release to try to get it tested as much as possible, try to just bang everything out of it that was going on, that anything that could go wrong, they would know about it before it happened, so that it was prepared as much as possible when it was released in June. The big deal about this, about the pluggable database, is that it brings Oracle to this full multi-tenancy. And Oracle has been multi-tenant before this. If you think about it with schemas, with virtual private databases, we've had this in place beforehand, but we were not sharing resources as much as we could. And multi-tenancy is a big deal. The ability, as we do more consolidations, the idea of virtual servers kind of came back, I think, to give challenges to Oracle, because the idea that you're going to slice off so many resources off of this huge enterprise environment and say this is your new virtual server, and people would put an Oracle database, well, that Oracle database required a number of background processes, resources that had to be allocated automatically anytime you had a database put on it. That instance required those resources available. So the idea of multi-tenancy and the ability to actually consolidate and have these resources available at the upper level, as we like to refer in the SQL Server world as the system database, and then have your user databases or your tenants below that are pluggable databases now in the database Oracle world in 12c, was a really interesting concept. And everything these days is going to the cloud. I mean, we talk about service, application as a service, database as a service, platform as a service. DBAs have to follow into the cloud. That's what's happening. We are now service providers in our world that is coming up, and every year it's getting more and more in that arena. So this concept is very familiar with anybody who is a MySQL DBA or an MS SQL DBA. We have system databases, and then we have user databases underneath it. MySQL understands the whole concept also, the system database with the user database, the information schema, which we ourselves would say everything that's in the sysaux table space. It's not a new concept, but it's something that Oracle has seen other people benefit from and said, we can do this and we maybe can do this better. This allows sharing of those SGA, those background processes, and then to actually have your data dictionary contained within that container database. And the terms make total sense to me. I love what they've done with this. So you've got your CDB, as we call it. So your resources are there, and you can actually slice off now a virtual server, put it aside, create your actual container database, and that then has your background processes, your SGA, your PGA, everything allocated at the higher level in that container database, and then you would create your pluggable databases or your tenant databases or user databases, however you want to refer to those, whatever terms you want to use. Pluggable databases, one Oracle uses, and those would be underneath it and be able to share those resources much more efficiently. They would be able to dynamically allocate memory as it's needed. So we look at the actual high level architecture for this. We have the Oracle database home for 12c. We have a container database that has our SGA or RAM or their background processes, and then of course, as we were just discussing, our pluggable databases, and then we can add pluggable databases to that or consolidate as required. This is kind of a really nice concept, and then they've actually added something in here, the EM Express. I'm going to hit on this just a little bit in this actual presentation because, of course, we have less than an hour, so we're going to be going through a few things. Plus, I am going to be doing a demo so you guys can kind of see this in action. The EM Express, I talked with Graham Wood about this for a period of time in Denmark last time we saw each other, and I do like this product. The idea that you have no overhead because the AWR and Ash is always on, and have this replacement, as they like to market it as, for the DB console. That's available and out there with the ability to manage and monitor what's going on. There are more features that will be available as it's going through the process of, it hasn't been developed as much as some of the other 12c products. You will be able to monitor your pluggable databases with it. It'll be a light and easy tool that's always available out there. All you need is to add it to the listener. Really nice little feature, so we'll talk about that too. Now, why is multi-tenancy such a big deal? Not just about the actual resources that can be shared, but the actual cost savings. This is one of those little graphs that have been created on multi-tenancy, and this is as a whole. What they found is that the shared approach, you ended up investing a little bit more money in the front because you actually had to allocate more memory, more resources to get the actual consolidated system built. But then over time, you had these huge savings that would actually add up. So if you look at it, the isolated approach ends up costing more over time versus the shared approach that ends up saving you money over time. Because you're able to share these servers are able to last longer. Virtual, you're able to allocate memory and needs as they're needed. You can consolidate, they can share the actual memory, everything. So you're not saying, I need to add more memory to the server. Think about your resources and everything, what they have to allocate whenever you have a system that needs maintenance versus a consolidated system where there's only one. So the container database. Container database has your actual system data dictionary residing within it. The SGA and the PGA global allocation resides within it. RAC and DataGuard is compatible with this. Somebody asked about a non-12.1 database. If they could actually upgrade and then turn it into a pluggable database, this is also compatible. Know that. You can do that. The CDB root namespace, think of that as your actual data dictionary piece that's contained within that. That's what that's referred to now as your root namespace. The high consolidation density by sourcing so much in the CDB makes perfect sense because instead of having it spread across multiple databases, you have it in just the one, and then your pluggable databases are able to share that again. Where the first virtualization, many Oracle homes created more complexity and upkeep in previous versions of Oracle, especially when we were talking about patching. You know, I don't know any DBA that enjoys patching, the idea of quarterly PSUs that you need to do across a huge environment. The ability to have one Oracle home, which is completely opposite of where we were going with just our recent previous versions of Oracle, where we're saying create a new Oracle home for every single database. Now we're saying create one Oracle home. It goes with a container database, and that's what you're going to be upgrading. That's what you're going to be patching. That's a complete different mindset than what we started out with in our previous versions of Oracle. I mean, we're thinking, okay, this makes sense. We have to patch less. Yeah, we're all right with this idea. I can go for this. This is sold. So back to the idea of the high consolidation density. Anybody who works in Exadata, this is a big deal. We're consolidating databases left and right. But even with Exadata, we see we have a limit on how much RAM that we have available, how much disk we have available, how much PGA can we allocate. The idea, again, of sharing those resources comes in very handy. 12c is going to be very popular with Exadata, but it's also going to be very popular anywhere. The ability on ODA, Exadata, any hardware system, especially if we're looking at the cloud and how much people are going to be leasing services from providers, the ability to consolidate that, utilize less resources, pay for less resources is going to be very valuable to them. The rapid patching and upgrading, the ability to have a container database, to unplug a database, transparently just easily bring it over to another system and then patch the one. You have rack capabilities where you could do rolling upgrades. All of this is available with the 12.1 environment. You can manage many databases as one. Remember, your container database really is your source. That is your actual entry point that you're coming in and actually managing the main system. You have advanced dynamic resource management. This is extremely important, that when one pluggable database requires more PGA, it can get that from the system. You're going to be allocating your actual resources at the container level for the entire pluggable environment, and that's where you will actually manage it. And then your rapid provisioning and cloning. This is something that we're going to work with a little bit in our actual demo of how easy it is and how many different ways that you can actually clone. I'm just going to grab a couple of them, but you're going to see just how easy it is. So the PDB. It's sealed off from any other PDB. It's very self-contained. If you think of the whole term of tenant and think of like an apartment building or a condo, the idea that each tenant has their own apartment or their own condo and that they are self-contained. That is their safety. That is, they're isolated. They don't have to worry about security issues. They are safe and secure. They are secure from the other tenants. They have their own space. That's how you have to think about a PDB. But they are sharing resources. They're sharing external walls. They're sharing heating systems, things like that. It's the same way that you have to think about the container database with the pluggables. They have a read-only copy of the CDB data dictionary, so you can actually query the data dictionary from a pluggable and get the information from the actual container. They use service names over the Oracle SID for connections. Everything is going service names. It's something we just need to actually deal with and understand. Oracle SIDs are going on the byline. Service names are much more flexible, give us a lot more control. As we were talking about earlier, the pre-12.1 databases can be migrated and turned into PDBs. The script actually, the script itself sits in the Oracle Home RDBMS admin directory, and you can utilize that to migrate manually, or you can do it through the DBCA. I believe I saw there was a feature to do that through the actual GUI as well. The RMAN Data Guard, these features can be accessed from the PDB level or the CDB level. I thought this was great that there's actual granular control at the PDB level for these features. You don't have to say, you know, I am having data guard set up for this entire container database. No, you can decide this one PDB is going to have data guard. This other one is not. All of that is completely controllable between the PDBs or at the CDB level, and you do the entire environment. So there's a very simple unplug method for this. You can see here that the actual database can be outputted to an XML file for future use. This is kind of nice because you can actually take this and then migrate the database over. You can take this and utilize it for almost a seed database, as we like to refer it, and build clones off of it. Plugging in is simple. The command file direction, all of that is very simple to utilize. Simple cloning from one pluggable to another. Each pluggable, as we talked about, is self-contained, has its own security, auditing, all that. You have its own admin level user that is created on there that you can actually give access to. This is very, I guess you'd say, valuable to people who are using DBAS, so database as a service. If you are a cloud individual that is a provider for people, you can do the chargebacks and everything else and have an admin user that they utilize to manage that pluggable database and only that pluggable database. They will have no access up to the container level. One of the things that I've noticed is I decided to use OMF on my latest VM and found out that you have to take extra care. Some of the standard scripting where we're doing the name file convert, things like that, of course, isn't going to work with OMF. And a lot of those standard scripts examples that are out there don't take that into consideration, so you will have failures. So why unplug? Unplugging gives you the ability to migrate to new platforms, new hardware, gives you the ability to migrate and upgrade to new database releases. You can move databases with ease to new servers with new systems, new resources. Let's say you've got a brand new VM. Somebody has just granted you and said, hey, let's move these databases over to here. It's very simple to do. I mean, very few steps. It's not the challenges of doing RMAN duplicates and having your scripts, and it's a lot easier with this process. The added enhancement of high availability, this is real easy too. It gives you the ability to create a rack environment in a whole new way. So checking out the container, con ID is everything. Understanding which con ID goes for what is important. 0 is for your instance level. 1 is for your container database. 2 is for the seed database. SQL Server DBAs will recognize this. It's similar to the model. It is a sample database that's out there that is used for pluggable creations. And anything over, I should say anything over 2 is for pluggables. I've got a mistake there. It should say over 2. So you can see there where I selected the name, the CDB, and con ID, the con DB ID from the $V database, and you can see that this is my little test instance that I have here. And it says that it is con ID 0, and that is my instance, my $V database. and then select ConID name from $PDBS, so for my pluggable databases. And you can see I've got my seed databases number 2, and then my 2 pluggable databases that I had at this time in my test environment, which are 3 and 4. The ConID is everything. So if I want to look at just about any information, I can look at select name ConID where from $active services, where the ConID is not equal to 1. Of course, my active services are going to show me my pluggable databases. Just about any of your comfortable scripts that you already use, your scripts that you utilize on a daily basis with the $GV views, you can query utilizing the ConID equals or does not equal along with joins on the ConID, and you will get the information that you require. I myself find that it's much easier for me to learn about new technologies if I'm able to bridge off old information that's already in my brain. This is something that's very valuable. I think if you can sit here and say, I already know these views, all I need to add to it is the ConID. Of course, there's a couple other columns that have been added to a number of these views, but knowing that ConID is there will get you a starting point. So actually getting in and digging down into your pluggable database is very similar. You can actually alter the session and set your container, and then you go from your container database down to your pluggable at this point, because I've set it to a pluggable database name. And then I can just do show, and I can do show ConID, and it tells me I'm in ConID number 4. Show con name, I am in that pluggable database. Once I've altered my session, I can then select name from active services, and notice again, I'm not seeing any of the other databases as I did when I was up in the container database. I am now inside that pluggable database, and the only thing that responds when I do select name from active services, you'll notice I have no where clause on there. It says you are in the pluggable database. Only the services for that pluggable database will show. So managing the pluggable database is pretty easy. It's alter pluggable database, the database name, and then whatever command you want. So open read only, close, open. You have all these commands at your disposal. Alter pluggable database is one of the most common that you will use to manage the pluggable database. So same as we were talking about with the $, you can see here I've queried from the $, data file, but I've added where ConID is 3. I want to look at this pluggable database at its data files. It quickly shows me each of the data files along with the size. So I've got name, bytes, turned it into megabytes, and said, here's my actual data files for the pluggable database that has the ConID of 3. If I were to look at $PDBS, where ConID equals 3, it would tell me that this comes from that actual pluggable database, so I could get that pluggable database name too. And of course, you could join whatever you want to do. But understand that, again, our $$ queries are all available to us. We just kind of need to do a couple changes on them. And I will show you some examples of that too. I do have a number of them. So the CDP views, I think this has been a little alarming for people. I heard, oh, there's over 2,400 CDP views. What am I going to do? The CDP views, a lot of them are based off the DBA views. So a lot of times you're just switching DBA for CDP in actual views that you're very comfortable with already. So as you can see here, I said select count star from CDP data files, and it told me this is how many files I have in my CDP, and this is from the CDP layer. And this means that it doesn't just include the CDP, but it's telling me everything that I had at that moment for each of my pluggable databases as well. There are 2 PDB views sitting at the container level. It's not much. You get down into the pluggable databases, you'll see a few more, but even then, those ones are not as important as actually getting the information that you already know from your $$ views and then changing your CDP views so that you're using your ConIDs in that. So how is AWR and Ash impacted by this? I think that's one of the important questions that I wanted to know about because, you know, I'm performance tuning. Performance tuning is very important to me. Would I be able to tell, you know, how distinguished would the data be as I started going through each of my AWR and Ash reports. Now, I won't lie to you, my little VirtualBox, I'm not doing a lot on it. I was mostly playing around with what can I do with the pluggables. But I wanted to see what was actually coming up in the AWR reports. Now, in the elapsed time, you can see that not only it shows me the statement, but it's also offered me a PDB entry that says it's coming from this pluggable database, and then the second statement is coming from this other one. So I've got the first statement is coming from PGKP 12c, and the second one is coming from PG Test 12c2. So I can see the number of executions in that. This information was extremely valuable to me. Now, this isn't everywhere. The SGA global information is still at the container level. It doesn't break down and let you know what each pluggable database is using. At the same time, you will know by looking at the actual shared memory usage per statement if one pluggable database is using more memory than another. You can narrow down on the statements and notice if there is an actual statement that requires some tuning, things like that. I still think that this is one of those areas like the AWR reports. I'm not seeing a lot of specialized AWR reports or anything like that for container versus pluggable. So I think that's probably an area that the guys at Oracle are probably going to be working on later on. It hasn't been implemented yet in this release. The nice thing I did see was that if you got into the data files and the objects, it did list what pluggable database. If it didn't come from the actual container, which you'll notice like the fourth one down, there isn't any pluggable database entry. Because of that, it is coming from the container. But you'll notice the rest of them actually list the pluggable database in reference that was utilizing the actual unoptimized read. This is going to be helpful as you're looking at physical objects and what is being impacted by the pluggable databases even up to the container database. Because as you notice, these are data dictionary objects that are having the issue. So this information would be extremely helpful to me as I'm troubleshooting this problem. Now in Ash, I had a little bit more challenge. There is an added section where you had top sessions and top SQL and all these other ones. You also had top container. And I thought this was kind of interesting because it said top container, the actual count, the percentage of activity that was being utilized. So you could see the percentage of the impact that each pluggable database had on the system. What I wasn't as crazy about was that if I looked into the actual selects, the distinct number SQL IDs, activity, active session, average active sessions, this was not broken down by PDB in any way. This is broken down across the board, so you're only looking at it from the container level. This could be challenging if you're saying, you have 44 distinct SQL IDs that are selects, but you can't tell which pluggable database that they could be coming from or just from the container. This is probably another area that's going to have future development from the guys at Oracle. So let's talk a little bit about EM Express. Now, like I said, I talked with Graham Wood for a while on EM Express, and I think it's a great product. I think it's kind of mismarketed as a replacement for DB Console, and personally I would like to see them market it as something to give access for developers to. I'm a strong believer in, and I know everybody who's listened to me talk has heard this before, I'm a strong believer in no DBA has a right to complain about performance of code that is released to production if developers do not have the access to the performance grid and the same performance tools that they do. When you're looking at the actual EM12c, a lot of times that makes DBAs nervous. They may not know how to give only read-only access. They're not sure, even with the granular control that EM12c gives them, that they're comfortable with developers, in there. The EM Express, on the other hand, is database-centric. They could give them full access to it. There is no overhead to the database by having it running. It's already pulling the Ash AWR data that's running all the time anywhere. It's always on. And all that's required is the Flash player for them to play it in Firefox, i.e. whatever browser they're utilizing. This is pretty cool. It's a nice tool, and the guys like Graham Wood, Yuri Schaaf, JB, they spend a lot of time on these performance tools. So I would really recommend anyone taking a look at it. realizing that they can easily give read-only access and let them take a look at this performance grid. And it would give the information, high-level information a lot of times that developers require to give them better tools so that they can be successful. So definitely look into that. And what this guy looks like is, looks a lot like the Enterprise Manager 12c. The graphics are a little bit chunkier, as I like to say it. You can see they're a little squared off. They're not as smooth. But it tells you a little bit about your system. As you can see on the left-hand side here, it tells me that I do have a CDB here. This isn't a SQL instance. It says at that time I had one PDB. What version it is. It says, you know, what is the actual name of the database, the instance name, what kind of platform I have it on, the name of my host, where the home is, and if the archiver is running or it's stopped. There's a little bit resource information at the bottom there, but of course this is kind of that basic information where you're seeing the user I/O weights, very high level weights. Now one of the things that I thought was kind of cool about this that I actually haven't had a chance to see in the M12C, and maybe it's just because my virtual servers have never pinged on it, is that VM paging. I don't know if you can see what I circled there, that red section. It actually caught my VM paging that was occurring when I was hitting on this thing pretty hard. And I thought that was nice. That was nice that this was available in here. I'm going to actually, I'll turn it on when we get in on the actual VM, and it may scoff at us just because I don't have a lot of resources on this actual PC that I'm working on. So we may overrun this a little bit. But as you can see at the top right, it looks very much like Ash Analytics. Anybody who's worked with Ash Analytics, this is what they're focusing on. Anybody who loves top activity in Enterprise Manager, no, you're going to have to give it up sooner or later. Ash Analytics is the way they're going. That is the future of the Enterprise Manager. And I would recommend getting more and more comfortable with Ash Analytics. Install it, play with it. It's worth it. But that gray bar there on the right top, you can pull that over to any section. You can resize it. You can look at, you know, individual unique sizes and times. You can see I just want to look at 2 minutes. I want to look at 7 minutes. I want to look at 12 minutes. I want to look at an hour. You can resize that gray bar to whatever you want, and then it's going to show you and actually reallocate the memory and the host runnable processes. All of that is going to change below and show you the information that's involved in that timeline. So I also wanted to hit on this a little bit. I don't know who's actually created their own VMs and started playing around with 12c. You know, I've got VirtualBox that we're going to do this demo on. I also have VMware, and I've got another demo that I've been working with on there. VMware seems to be the most trusted among the DBAs. VirtualBox is supported with Oracle. Oracle has their, you know, their actual OVA files out there and everything else, and you can build everything out. That's what they do with their OTN days, and that their plague models are out there on the VirtualBox. The images are easy to locate. Shortcuts can really save you some time, though. I know I looked at a couple different examples when people were building their 12c environments, and some of them I understood where people were having challenges with them. If anyone is interested in an OVA file that has the 12.1 downloads on it, along with the 50 gig U01, and you can build everything on your own. It's about 6.3 gigs, I think is what I have. I will make that available, and people can do their own installations and start playing around with it. It is just what you were seeing there, the 64-bit Linux and all that. I am more than happy to share it. It's just got default passwords, and it's fun to do. I think that's the best way to learn a lot of times. But definitely I will leave my email up, and you guys can send me an email, and I will make it available to other people. So let's see about demoing this guy. So I want you guys to see exactly what I'm doing. And we are going to start out, if I can type, with this right here. And I will turn this into a blog post. I think that's extremely helpful whenever anybody wants to check it out and play around with it. But I wanted you guys to kind of see what I was doing. And there was no questions I worked around. So we'll try to get these windows there. So we can see everything. Everybody can see what I'm seeing here. So we're going to start out by creating just a simple pluggable database. And so you guys can see what I have here. We'll do a describe so you can see this first. So this is $$ active services. And if we select name, con ID from $$ active services, we're going to see all these lovely guys here. Our background, our users, we recognize all of this. Who's using what? This is all shows up in our ASH and our AWR reports. We recognize these services. But the one that we've got here, we can see that we have 2 pluggables. Your seed database does not show up, of course, in services. And then we have our actual database, our container, which is test KP12c. I know I make weird names for this. So I'm going to create a pluggable database. And you can see this up here at the top. So pluggable, if I can type. And we're just going to call this 12_1. Actually, what do we want? C1. We'll call it here. We're going to create our admin user. And now this one has just used the seed database to create a pluggable database from. It has not utilized anything else. And it doesn't take very long because, of course, the seed database is empty. It has just very few data files in it and everything else. But it kind of gives you an idea of how simple this is. That instead of having to list out all your data file names and everything else and where are you going to put everything, of course, I have OMF turned on, so I don't have to list much of anything at all. It's going to go out here and create it. And as you can see, we're beating the heck out of my poor machine. It's good for it, though. Anybody who follows me on Twitter knows I have a new one showing up here any day on my doorstep. I'm upgrading. Should be done any second now. Come on. There it goes. And there we go, our ultra pluggable database. And we put in our name, open. And here we'll open it first. And once it opens, we'll take a look at it, as well as the other ones from the $PB. Get here. Select name, con ID, open mode from $. And here's our new one. And as you can see, it's read and write. To give us the most resources, I kind of left these guys mounted. I thought that would be nice of me. So we're going to play with this guy a little bit more here. So we're now going to alter pluggable database TST-KP12C1, and we're going to close it. And then we're going to unplug it. But we're going to unplug it into an XML file. Unplug into. And we'll notice that this is now mounted. So it mounts the actual pluggable database to unplug it because we closed it earlier. Okay. Now, we want to create a database off of this XML file. We want to base it off of the test KP12C1, and we're going to create a new one from it. Okay, but we don't want to actually copy it. We just want to use that as the seed. Okay, so if there's anything else in it, we're not going to take it over. Call it KP12C4. We're going to say using I have to say no copy. Except I already have something in there. No, that's right. Except my GUID is already used. Well, let's clone instead. I know we're running out of time here. And I'll clean up my GUIDs later. And if you notice, most of the scripts that you'll see will tell you to do a name file convert, which is what you'll have to do if you're not using OMF. I am using Oracle Managed Files, and due to that, I don't have to list anything for actual file names or conversions. So now we're creating a clone using that XML file. And while we're waiting for that, told you my PC doesn't like this one bit. You can see I have a number of queries out here. And not much of it has changed. but I wanted to kind of show you what has. These are just basic queries, nothing serious in them. But from the $V session and $V process, I've done a join as well as asked for the actual container ID. And what's helpful about that is that I can continue to use queries that I'm already very comfortable with and simply go down to the container level that's needed. So we're going to open this guy. And you'll see that on any of these. So keep that in mind. Any SQL that you have, you can just add in. I just ask for the con ID, and then I'm able to continue to utilize any of the SQL statements that were valuable to me in the past. I've just added those joins. And to see how that works, we will use, actually I'm going to go down and bring that screen back up so you can see this. Oops. And now you'll see these actual processes here. If I were to go and alter my session, actually we'll do select see what we got. Okay, and we go and alter session, set container to equal PG test 12C5, and we go and run that again. And now I see 6. You can see that this entry that was here before just moved. And I have now moved that over to the first session, over to the actual pluggable database from the first one. How are we doing on time? James, I see that we're at 9:58.
Hi, Kellen. I think the time's fine at the moment. I haven't had any comments from the audience saying that they'd like you to hurry up.
Stop.
So this all seems very interesting, so please do carry on.
I'm going to go in and do one more clone here. But again, I want you guys to be able to follow through too as I'm working through this, because I thought this was kind of a neat way of doing this. This one actually has to do with a parameter change. So I'm going to exit out and get back in there. Whoops, except I can't type. This is why I don't do many demos. I can't type. So we are first going to go in here and take one of our pluggable databases. So we are going to go in and select our name and our con ID and open mode from $PDBs. I think you guys all have this view quite memorized at this point. And we're going to take this 5th one here, this guy, or 6th one, I'm sorry, 6th one. And we're going to go ahead and clone it. And again, if I would read what I'm typing, here we go. When in doubt, copy and paste. Okay, now we're going to create a directory to actually hold our cloned files. So instead of changing to there, I'm just going to actually just make the directory straight from this actual point. I want to make this. And this actually exists. I don't have to do this, but you would normally. We can actually make a new one. Why not? Okay. Now, so you guys can see this as we go down, we're getting into the actual parameter for this. And you'll notice I've been playing around with this, so this is still set to a different one. I'm going to alter system set db create file dest to equal my new directory I just created. Okay. Now that I've done that, and you'll notice it's been adjusted. Now I can create my pluggable from that. And we call this CL test 12C2 from, and which one did we choose here? The one we just made read-only. So see, we're creating the pluggable database. If we can spell, and I will move all my scripts and everything else out on DBA Kevlar. And like I said, I will create a blog post out of this so people can play around with this. And if anyone is interested in the OVA file for this, this Linux virtual that I'm using, I will be glad to share that out via Dropbox and people can download it. I think the best way to learn is actually getting to play with this. I've just started and I know I've been having a ball with it. Although my children are sick of seeing my laptop on my lap. It's always those challenges. And once we create this, we will open it. And you can see each one of these scripts have just some subtle differences to it. I know one step we had challenges because I've got to mess with my GUIs because I've been playing around with this for a while now, for the last couple of weeks, or I should say just about a week and a half now. And I need to go and do some cleanup. Now the one thing that I noticed here, and one thing I would recommend, you always have to remember afterwards to reset the DB create file dest once you're completed with your actual clone back to the original settings. If you don't, of course, any file you create is going, even for your container database, is then going to go into this directory. So that is the drawback of this choice in cloning method. And there you have it. We now have another database. Now what's interesting is that you'll also notice is that I've got all these mounted and all these different pieces here. You can clean this up pretty easily by going out and altering any pluggable database to, it says it's already closed, and I can do drop pluggable database PG test 12C2 including data files. And there you go. Very easy to actually clean up afterwards too. You can also do keep data files. If at the point you want to actually drop it but want to keep and retain the actual information, you will see that. And when you have a keep one, I will show you what that looks like. Let's see if we can challenge this poor little thing one more time. This is the final piece I'll show you guys. Mrs. Kellen, start your listener. Okay. And like I said, he's going to complain a bit. We are really torturing the poor thing. Activity. Oh, come on, you got it. And this is all my fault because I have too much running on it. There we go. PDBs, this is what I want to show you. Notice these guys here, these are some of my GUIs. I've actually dropped some of this stuff, but I haven't cleaned up after it, so you're going to see things like this out here. That's just me needing to clean it up. But you can see your actual PDBs through the EM Express that's out here and the load that they're actually causing on your actual system. Got your I/O, your memory that's hosted on here. You can see we're doing a little bit of EM paging on here. It's usually when that nice little screen comes across on my computer that says, hey, high CPU usage, high memory usage, stop it. So that is pretty much it for me. James, I think I'm ready to turn back over to you. I've tortured these poor guys enough.
Thank you, Kellen. It was great because I did get some feedback that you probably saw as well in the question panel, where a few people have said, "Loan, please carry on. This is great." So yeah, I think everybody really enjoyed this session. So thank you again. We do have quite a lot of questions here. So let me just open.
And
up
I'm going to have you definitely tell me what those are, because I can see the question box, but I still can't see questions very well, and it may be my screen that's giving me the challenge.
Okay. there are quite a few questions here, so please bear with me whilst I just try and organise some. A few of them are general questions. As I mentioned before, there's some feedback where people are saying thank you, Kellen. In terms of, I think Kellen did mention that she will be blogging about this. She'll also make scripts and any links available, so that will all be available afterwards. I'll also put up this information on allthingsoracle.com when I send the email out. Once the recording's ready, I'll make sure I include links to all of that as well, so it'll be very easy for you to access all of this information. Okay, so please just give me a few seconds just to go through the questions and try and organise them. We will try and get through as many as we can in sort of the next 15-20 minutes or so. If we can't get to one of your questions, then hopefully we can try and answer that on allthingsoracle.com afterwards.
I see one question about the SQL Server level roles, as in DB owner. And we actually, you saw that in the very first demo, where we had the user admin. The nice thing about creating that login is that at that point they are an admin over that pluggable database. They have no access to the container, or as you would say, the system database in SQL Server.
Thanks, Kellen. I'm just going to go through these questions now. Some of them you've probably already answered during the session, but hopefully a quick answer will still be a nice reminder of some of the key points. So
I'm getting to some of them.
Pardon?
Oh, I'm getting to some of them. I can see some of them. Did you guys hear me, the answer about the server roles in SQL Server?
Yeah, we
Was
did.
I muted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Karen.
The keeping their own temp versus undo table spaces, they have their own temp table space. Undo table space is shared. There's an undo sharing option for this. I will post the Dropbox information about the VM out on my blog on dbakevlar.com. The container database must be up for a pluggable database to be available. I see the question here is, can the pluggable databases be accessible even if the container database is down for any activity? No. The container database does have the data dictionary. Everything on the container database must be accessible at that time for the pluggable database to be up and running. And can we create and drop a container database? You can. Initially, as you're going through and creating your initial database, you have the choice with Oracle to either create a single instance or the container database. The container database is the default at this point. And I think I did answer this one during the actual session, but I'll try again here. Can you briefly describe on how data files, table spaces, etc. are implemented? Maybe touch on difference between clone and no copy. When you do a clone, you're actually taking the entire database that includes the user table spaces, everything that's in the existing, and copying it over, versus an actual copy of a database that will be the same on that. A no copy means that you're just using it as a seed. So you just want the actual the seed pieces, which means the sysaux, the system, and the undo temp. You can recreate a new temp, things like that. I think that explains that well enough. I'll put out, somebody asked, can you show the contents of the XML file you unplugged the database into? I can put one of those out on my blog post, what an XML file looks like from there. Somebody asked, what is the importance of the app admin user? Again, that is the same as in SQL Server, the DB owner. That is the admin owner or the admin user for the pluggable database. They are contained down to that pluggable database and do not have access to the container database. If you think of it in terms of cloud services, you have provided this database as a service to that user and they can manage it. You don't have to have an app admin, but if you have them, or the user admin, if you have them, that admin user is created to manage that database at a certain level, you know, to manage things that are needed for it if they're in a cloud service and chargeback environment. Do we need to shut down all pluggable databases when we're doing an upgrade? You have a number of challenges with that, or how you want to build your environment. There's a number of redundant choices. If you have rack, of course, you can do a rolling upgrade. If you have pluggable databases, you may want to choose to have a second container database and unplug those databases and plug them into the other container and then upgrade the original container. This gives you a little bit more, I guess you say, form and function when it comes to upgrade choices and how you deal with it. But you only have to upgrade the container database. You don't have to do the pluggable databases till afterwards. You plug them back in and you're done. Because remember, your data dictionary, everything is in your container database. It's not in your pluggable. There's just a copy there, a read-only copy that needs to be refreshed. And I see one really large one about, does each PDB get library cache? I can't seem to read it very clearly. The question is, does each PDB get its own library cache? In my situation, we have over 100 identical schemas, each running identical SQL for different customers. This causes a lot of latch contention for each child cursor. Having a separate library cache per PDB would greatly reduce that. I personally would rethink the actual design, because we talked about multi-tenancy and the original concept with Oracle of schemas being a tenant within itself. That is one concept of that. What would you say if you were to take each one of those schemas and to publish them out to each to their own PDB? And then the PDB would be able to manage that dynamically and deal with a lot of that latch contention. That would be the recommendation from me. I would definitely look at that. Is that an option for you guys? The EM Express, does it require tuning and diagnostic packs? If so, what is Oracle's answers for customer running standard edition? Yes, it does require the actual diagnostic packs and the tuning packs. You would have limited access within the EM Express if you did not have those. For standard edition, they are still recommending that you use Stats Pack, and the way that Oracle looks at it is that Stats Pack is, I guess I feel it's very ignored. It's not utilized anymore. They have pushed forward, and that the actual management packs are something of what you need these days to get the most out of Oracle. So I do try to talk people into purchasing them. I apologize. That's kind of my take on it. I'm an Ash AWR girl. I love the features that it offers us. Outside of that, you're stuck with StatsPack. James, do you see some that I'm missing here?
No, I think there were a couple of questions sort of at the beginning. I think
I'm going backwards at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think you probably have sort of covered them in later bits. I think it's always difficult when questions come in quite early on, and then you do tend to cover.
Well, I am going backwards, so I'm going to try to keep going. I am grabbing ones as I'm going through here. There's another one asking about the PDBs. Do they have their own system in SysOx tablespaces? Yes, they do. In the system tablespace, of course, there's going to be a copy of the data dictionary as well as a subset of data that is required for that pluggable database. SysOx, of course, there is still actual functional performance data that is being collected off those pluggable databases, and that would exist in the SysOx. And there's the way that Tom Kite explained this is there is a virtual, SP file that's being utilized by this. You can actually update parameters in the pluggable database that does not go up to the container database. So keep that in mind. For those of you, although I don't recommend it, that have, special parameter settings in your databases outside of the default, that would be it. They are there. You can do that. I think that's it.
Thank you, Kellen. As I mentioned before, if we were unable to answer one of your questions, then please do ask a question on allthingsoracle.com. There is a comments function under all of the posts. Hopefully, Kellen, you'll be able to answer a couple of those questions there, or actually maybe somebody else in the community will be able to help with that as well.
Of course. Yep.
So before we finish off, once again, please do check out our upcoming webinars. And if you're interested in looking at Redgate's source control for Oracle tool, please do hang on the line. It will be a quick demonstration. I'm conscious we've kind of gone a little bit over, so I'll try and give an overview of the tool in about 5 or 10 minutes. I'll start that in a couple of minutes. So as always, please do check out redgate.com/Oracle webinars and register for the 2 further webinars this month. Okay, so before I go on to the demonstration of source control for Oracle, I would just like to thank Kellen for presenting today's session. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Certainly the feedback that's come through from the audience, it sounds like you'll have. So thank you once again, Kellen, for a fantastic webinar.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to get my machine ready for this demonstration. Please give me a few seconds. As I mentioned, I'm going to give a quick overview of Redgate's source control for Oracle product. It will be a short demonstration, so it should only be 5 or 10 minutes, but there will be a chance for you to ask questions at the end as well. So please do hang on the line. I'm just going to get things set up now. Sorry, I do apologise. I was actually on mute for that part. So I was just trying to explain how the product works and the demonstration over the next 5 to 10 minutes. What I'll be going through. The little graphic that was up on the screen before was just to explain that as you're making changes in your editor, you can use any editor. Source control for Oracle is going to monitor the difference between the database and your source control repository. It's going to highlight any differences, it's going to notify you, and then it's going to take all of the hard work out of checking those changes into source control. So what we're looking at now is this is source control for Oracle. I have one project open. I've connected my database, which is called Obstacle. I've connected it to a Subversion repository. Currently, source control for Oracle supports Subversion and Team Foundation server. And everything at the moment is up to date. You'll understand what that means in a moment, but to kick things off, I'm actually going to go into SQL Developer. I'm just going to run this script here, which is going to make some changes to the database. So if you look right at the bottom of the screen, and actually I'll just bring my screen up a little bit so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. You'll see an icon here, which is the source control for Oracle icon, and it's got a little red star on it. So source control for Oracle has noticed that I've made some changes to the database, but the important thing is that it's noticed that the database is out of sync with the source control repository. And I can very quickly right-click on the source control for Oracle icon, and I can jump straight to that project. So that script that I just run has made these changes. So you can see it's edited a table and a package, and it's created a couple of new objects as well. So it's created a new table, it's created a new trigger, and a new sequence. If we look at the bottom of the window here, we've got a nice side-by-side diff of the DDL for each of these objects, and we can see the differences between the database, so the changes that I've just made and what's in our source control repository. So for example, this first object, the script that I ran, added another column, a new column to this table. So that's on the database, and obviously that column isn't yet in the corresponding object in our source control repository. I've got a couple of other changes here, so we've got some new things in the game. We can scroll through all of these, and we can review the changes before we then check them into source control. So I'm going to type a quick comment here. And then check those changes in. So you can see it was really quick and really easy to check these changes into Subversion. So I've made some changes on the database, and then I don't have to spend time exporting or trying to figure out a way to export these objects as files and then to check them in manually. Source control for Oracle has done all of that for me. If I click on the History tab, I can actually then see the last set of changes, the group of changes that I've checked in. I can scroll through each of the objects again, so I can review that, and similarly I can go back through the history. You can see that my details are here. This has been taken from Subversion. If I scroll down, I should hopefully be able to find one of my colleagues, so you will be able to look at changes by other developers within your team. I should have mentioned at the beginning here, this particular scenario, if you imagine that I'm a developer in a team and we're all working on the same database. So as we're making changes, we're all checking those into Subversion. The source control for Oracle also has another side to it, and it enables you to work with within a sandbox environment. It enables you to work much easier within a sandbox environment. And the reason is that you can, like I was checking changes into Subversion, you can also get changes from Subversion and apply them to your sandbox environment. So that's what I'm going to do now. So that's the second part of the demonstration. I'm going to show you how source control for Oracle also makes that easier and will actually help you to set up a sandbox environment. I'm going to go back into SQL Developer. I'm just going to quickly open up the obstacle database. I'll go into my users. And we've got a user here called Widget Michael, or a schema here called Widget Michael. Currently this schema is completely empty, so this is just a shell. And what I want to do now, I'm going to populate this schema. But the important thing is I'm going to populate this schema from source control. So I could obviously do that within the database, but within this particular scenario, if you imagine that the developers on the team are all working within their sandbox environment, so the only way that we can be sure that we're going to be updating the schema with the latest objects is by taking this information out of source control. So as people have been working, they've been updating the database from source control. This will also enable you to see how easy it is to actually get set up in the first place. So I'm going to create a new source control project. I'm going to log in as Michael. Again, I'm going to be using Subversion here, so I'm just connecting to the Subversion repository. I could be using Team Foundation Server. And we're going to map the obstacle database to the Widget Michael schema, so that's the schema that we've just seen in SQL Developer. I've already set up a folder within the repository called the Widget one. That's the one that I was checking changes into a minute ago. So I'm going to connect to that one as well. And I'm going to create this project. I'm going to leave it named as Widget Michael. This doesn't matter, you can name this, but we've got a nice little summary here of exactly what's happened. So as you'll see, once it's finished refreshing, because the Widget Michael schema was empty, it's saying there are a number of changes to get. So let's click on this project. And we're going to, this time we're on the Get Latest tab. As you've just seen in SQL Developer, the Widget Michael schema is totally empty, so all of these are new objects. We can review them before we then click on this button here to apply selected changes to the database. So that's finished. Let's go back into SQL Developer. Let's refresh this, and we can see now that this schema has now been populated. The great thing is that we've populated this from source control, so we know that this is the latest version of this schema. And then once again, as Michael will be making changes, I would be able to pick those up, and similarly, as I make changes, Michael will be able to pick those up. Okay, so I hope that gave you a quick insight into what you can achieve by using source control for Oracle. So source control for Oracle enables easy database source control. We currently support SVN and TFS. It removes the manual processes and makes the whole process of checking database changes into source control much, much easier. You can carry on using SQL Developer, Toad, Pill SQL Developer, so it's not dependent on your team all using a particular IDE. And this is great for teams where the developers do use different development environments. If you're already working in a sandboxed environment, then there is additional support to you and enable you to make sure that you're not overriding each other's changes, enable you to get the latest changes from source control before you start working on them. If you're looking to move to a more sandbox setup, then source control for Oracle can help you to set up this environment. It's a key part of the deployment suite for Oracle, so it works side by side with, for example, Schema Compare for Oracle. You can download a free 28-day trial at redgate.com/source control for Oracle, or just go to redgate.com/Oracle and you'll be able to download a trial for all of our tools. I'm aware that I did rush through that quite quickly because I was conscious of the time. If you have any questions or you'd like me to go over any other bit of the product again, please do type this in your question panel now. Okay, so no questions have come in. Thank you very much for hanging on to look at the demonstration of this tool. I will be sending you a link to this information again when I send the follow-up email to the webinar. So please do check out Source Control for Oracle afterwards. And I would just like to say thank you once again for attending today's session. I hope you have a nice evening or a nice day depending on where you are in the world. Thank you very much.